Education, innovation, leadership, so many hats. What is your secret mantra?
I can safely say that I never planned any of this. It just so happened.
If you could remove one outdated element from our current education system overnight, what do you think that could be?
One element is definitely marks.
What responsibility weighs the heaviest on you as a leader?
I think what keeps me up at night is the safety and security of children.
Where do you think that technology risks replacing what should never be replaced?
I could be wrong.
How do you differentiate between a good business and a meaningful, impactful venture?
See, a good business can be anything, and selling is a good business.
What was tougher, running your own business or running EO?
Definitely running my own business.
One word your core team would use to describe your leadership, and be honest with it. Hi, everyone. We are here today with a fantastic speaker and a wonderful guest, Mr. Anirudh Khaitan. Anirudh is a founder, a visionary, an education reformer, an angel investor, and a business leader. He's a purpose-driven leader with 20 plus years of experience at the intersection of education, innovation, and investments. As the chairman of Khaitan Education Center, Anirudh is shaping the learning journey of 6,200 plus students by driving curriculum transformation, EdTech integration, and future-ready leadership. Beyond classrooms, he is a strategic investor backing high-growth startups and equity markets across India and the US. A former co-chair of FICCI Arise and the president of Khushi NGO, his work reflects a larger mission, building ecosystems that empower, educate, and elevate lives. Thank you and welcome, Anirudh. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Okay. So, education, innovation, impact, leadership, so many hats. What is your secret mantra? A small icebreaker before we begin. What is your mantra to it?
It's everything has happened to me when I've been pushed to the wall. So I can safely say that I never planned any of this. It just so happened. Even education, it just so happened that we were given this school which is not doing well, and then we had no choice but to do it. And then there was some law that was going to come in our state, which was not favorable. So we had to form an organization to counter that. Then
That can be very difficult. You've put it out very simply.
but that's how it happened. I got pushed to the wall, and Khushi I've been part of for many years, more than 20. And organically, I guess I was fortunate enough to lead it now. So as I said, whenever I was pushed to the wall, it happened.
And innovation happened.
And innovation, I think, is part and parcel. I don't think you can really do without innovation today.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a continuous process, ever evolving.
I think so. I think also you have to be careful a bit about innovation. I've realized one thing, that over innovation is also not good, because old systems work very well, right? I think you have to define your objective. And if you can meet your objective by doing simple things and you don't need to innovate, that's fine too. And I think that's my learning in the last 6 months, as to over innovate too.
Very interesting and important. Great. So, if you could remove one outdated element from our current education system overnight, what do you think that could be?
I think I'll answer it. I'll give you two elements. One element is definitely marks, right? Because if you're going to evaluate kids by a number, it's incorrect, because they could have had a bad day, they could not remember something that day, but that does not define the kind of person they are. If you see a lot of business leaders who also drop out of college do very well. So I think I would eliminate marks for sure. But also in our country, I would eliminate the love for English speaking. A lot of these parents come and say, "Bas mere bacche ko Angrezi acha sikha." And what they don't realize, that English is a language, it's not knowledge. And people mistake the two. So if people just concentrated on, confidence building or resilience building, and not concentrate so much on how well are you speaking, communication is important, but that's not English. You can communicate very well in any language, active listening, thinking. That's all part of communication. But in India, for people, communication means अंग्रेजी में अच्छा बात कर सकता है कि.
Yeah.
I would eliminate that piece.
It also comes from our colonial past somewhere, right? It was embedded, and it's
100%.
important to call that out.
100%. We are. I think we're still very enamored by foreigners, and if people still have. We all have friends who come here and they say people are still taking pictures with us on the road, even though there's so much social media, etc. So I think as a culture, we are still very enamored by it.
So leading thousands of students means shaping so many futures together. What responsibility weighs the heaviest on you as a leader?
Wow. I think what keeps me up at night is the safety and security of children. India is a very unforgiving country, right? You could put all systems and all processes and everything, but if something happens to the child, your neck is at stake. So I think that's what keeps me up at night. But from an education standpoint, I try to keep things simple. And I believe the only thing, one of the most important things, 80-20 rule. So 80% is that if a child can just think I'm capable, that's it. And that is the entire journey of a child, where how do we make them believe, hey, I'm capable, I can do this. That's it. Whether good marks, bad marks, doesn't matter. I can do this. And that's what keeps our entire team up at night from an education standpoint. How do we get there?
Very nice.
So
with EdTech booming, where do you think that technology risks replacing what should never be replaced?
So, I could be wrong. So let me first put it that way. But so many people I have met have said, oh, colleges are going to go out of fashion, enrollments are going down, schools will finish, AI is going to do this personalized learning, and, children are just going to learn through AI. Definitely, robots are going to teach our children, etc. But I think one thing that we are missing out here is that human connection. Very, very important. I'm not sure how will technology replace that. That, a boy falling down and his friend right there helping them up, or just being there emotionally for them. Because I think going to school, most people think that it's to learn ABCD or to learn maths. I think that's a very small part of education. For me, I think education is the whole going to school and failing and meeting your friends and not making a friend, and how do I make friends, and why am I being treated this way? And I think that is a whole gamut of education, sports and failing in sports. I don't know how edtech is going to replace that. So I strongly believe that edtech will get integrated into colleges and schools. It already has. It's like going to be like Google and calculator. You have to use it. It's not going to. I strongly believe it will not replace schools. It will just increase the capacity of teachers or students to learn. That's it.
Sure.
So I just hope that edtech does not replace the human connection.
Yeah.
I think that will be a disaster for our world.
Yeah. So you operate across education, investments, and social impact. What, according to you, ties all of these decisions back to a single vision?
So I think it's all about transformation, right? If you really think about it, that so the social sector, which is Khushi, and my schools, they're both into education.
Okay.
So it's all about impact, changing lives, giving opportunities to kids. Somehow I feel investments is also like that. If you see startups, you're giving an opportunity for a set of people who have a vision to change their lives and build products. So I think it's a deep question, but we are transforming lives in all three cases.
Right.
It's about impact, right? So I think that's what, for me, that's the only thing I could think that ties all the three things together.
Oh, very true. Very rightly said.
Yes.
And as an investor, how do you differentiate between a good business and a meaningful, impactful venture?
when I went to Babson, you had to write an essay. And I still remember the first line of my essay. It asked to define business. That was the question, something like that. And my first opening line was, business is the art of extracting money through others' pockets without resorting to violence. Okay, so see, a good business can be anything. And selling drugs is a good business because good business is equals to profitability, right? Um, but an impactful business is where you're actually making a difference to the community and the society, right? And I truly believe that if you do impactful business, money will run after you, right? I made this mistake all my life. I ran after money, or I ran after profitability, or that number,
The number.
right? And I don't think that works. I think you have to be very something beautiful. The Bhagavad Gita says, right, that just get detached from the outcome. You just work to work because that's your dharma. So I really think that that impactful business are like, even building buildings for people to live in. That's an impactful business. Or having schools and changing lives. That's an impactful business, right? So I think there's a very fine line between the two. It's how you think. What's your question? It's how you think about your businesses. What makes it a good business or impactful business? I can always ask in my institution, how do I get to a 50% margin? Or I can always ask, what is the best education system I can give to my children? My business will take a very different shape in both those questions. Just that one question can change the entire direction of the business, though the business is the same. One can become a good business, one can become an impactful business.
Yes, absolutely. And also depends on how the person and their value systems align with that opportunity, right? And
Yeah.
for you, it beautifully aligns in this impact, yet some form of a giving back manner.
Absolutely.
Now, has there been a moment, Anirudh, that through your NGO work that made you think what privilege really means when you were working with such different sections of the society that we don't normally meet?
I think I think about it all the time, and I'm very grateful to be in the position. I think all of us are. I'll answer it in a different way. For many years, I used to go in my car and I used to see all these people on the side, begging for money, etc. And I used to think, why me? Why am I sitting here and why not them? Right? Why am I so special? And then this friend of mine, my mentor, friend, whatever you want to call him, gave me a very good book. It was called The Tyranny of Merit. And after reading that book, I realized that how lucky we are. That we won the lucky pool, right? And it is our responsibility not to just squander that luck away and work hard and perhaps change lives of others. And I'm grateful every day to to be in this position. I don't think it has anything to do with my talent. I just think I got lucky.
Oh, that's
That's
kind
it.
of you to say.
No, I truly believe that.
Also, the wonderful part is that being able to recognize that, yes, perhaps not in terms of just hard work, but one is also lucky in terms of those opportunities that one has gotten, the resources that one has gotten. And when somebody like you who's done so much, and yet if you're able to recognize that, I'm sure the amount of impact you're able to make to people uh, who haven't had these most basic platforms that we consider or we take for granted, could perhaps do wonderful work for them.
I hope.
Yeah,
I'm just lucky to have this opportunity, honestly.
sure. Would you like to elaborate a little more about your NGO? What is the work you do there?
So, Kushi was formed by Mr. Kapil Dev, and we take care of more than 200,000 children in terms of remedial education. So, what that means is we go into a classroom, we take a pre assessment, and we of maths and English, and then we put them into grades. So, a class, 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 8-year-old, all can be in the same sort of cohort because we look assessing their level, and then our team goes and gives them remedial education. and then we do a post assessment. That's one one of the parts Khushi does. We also do something called Paths for Freedom. So we go to communities and we talk to women, little kids, little girls, 13, 14-year-old girls about menstruation and, give them pads, etc. for free. So these are two of our most impactful projects that Khushi undertakes. There are other small things that we do, but these are the two most impactful.
And if success in education wasn't measured by marks, as you had said you'd like to eliminate, if success wasn't measured by marks, what would be the new metric for education?
Yeah, I said it before. I think if somehow we can just measure confidence, curiosity, I think that's the second on the list. Resilience, just these attributes. If you can measure this, but that also comes to kind of a grade, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what I would. And we are trying to do that. But how much ever we try to do it, I think marks will still be important. I think we just have to look at them differently. That's it. And look at other things too. I don't think you can get away from marks because everyone wants a score.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, to quantify. But I would actually start measuring these attributes. How confident is the kid? I think, or how curious is the kid? Curiosity, I think, is also another great attribute to have to be successful.
Yeah. And what is the trend you see amongst parents these days? Do you feel they are equally understanding of the mark system, or is there a lot of pressure still?
See, it depends which. No, I think India as a country and is really failing in this aspect. We have the highest number of social emotional health, cases because of our fascination with our kids going to Ivy Leagues or going to IITs or, depending on which category you fall in. So whole country is just mad about, Sharma ji ka beta ja raha hai, IIT mera beta kyun nahi ja raha. So they put so much pressure on the kids. And I don't see it's becoming better because your question was how are parents changing. I still think there's a huge way to go. Even people who have studied abroad said they all want their kids to go just to the best college. Just because perhaps their friends have gone, children have gone to the best college, etc. So I think that mindset has to change. Let the kid be, man. Just let them grow up. Let them be who they want to be.
Sure. Very, very rightly said. Okay, now we come to the fun part of the podcast.
Oh no.
So you've been a president for EO Gurgaon in 2019.
Oh God, yes.
Amazing year of service and a lot of dedication must have taken. So we'll go back to some rapid fire questions.
Oh no, you didn't send me these.
We wanted the natural side. So
Okay, for
all
sure.
candid answers.
For sure.
So one decision during your presidency that felt crazy at that point, but then it turned out to be a masterstroke now.
Wow. I'll just start with the name of my year. It was called Zara Hatke. I think that I just wanted to be different, so I chose that name. But even the overnight retreat, because our president's ball was always party, like just a evening. And then we decided as a team that no, let's do it an overnight retreat. I think that turned out to be amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if it was a crazy decision, but it was definitely a different decision. Yeah.
Okay, well, give us a hard truth. What was tougher, running your own business or running EO?
Definitely running my own business. EO was very simple. It was fun. We were all buddies and we were having so much fun. So definitely the business.
One word your core team would use to describe your leadership, and be honest with it.
Chaotic. Maybe not anymore. I've become better, but definitely chaotic.
That's interesting. What's one bold move that you took as a president that raised a few eyebrows?
Oh wow! I hope my friends who were presidents don't see this. I think I think I could have been a much better president because I was very if I like someone at the interview, I'd say, "Bas isko lena," and I used to start having fights. And that necessarily doesn't mean, I mean, they were not my friends coming. I just felt that they would be great members. And some of them, I'm never going to name them, but yeah, so I think I was a very strong personality at that level. I wish I was better. I'm sorry if everyone's watching,
Off this, we'll try to guess which ones were those.
No, please don't. They're all fantastic members.
Okay, be honest. How many times did you think during your year, oof, why did I sign up for this?
Never. Never. And I always enjoy being at leadership positions. And, Marco really pushed me for this. I used to keep telling him I don't want to be president, but internally I wanted to be, how that is. And more so because I was probably not confident I could be a good president.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the year, not even once, because honestly, and to all members, I think I got 100 times more than I gave. So if I gave 10x to you, I got 1000x.
Oh, nice.
So, I really enjoyed it and I really benefited personally from just being there. So it's a great position to have for your own growth.
Yeah.
And whatever you give is less, guys. Keep giving more to you.
Noted. For everyone, apply. Sure. Okay, one meeting that could have been definitely been an email that you would often feel during your presidency.
In my presidency,
Yeah.
one meeting that
Could have been an email, and you're like, this shouldn't be discussed in person. Please make this messages.
I don't know. This is a tough one.
Don't give us a diplomatic answer. You can
No, one meeting that could have just been an email.
Yeah, or a task that you feel that one has to meet for that could have just been
Mostly everything now. Now mostly everything. I mean, so many times it's a meeting for just conveying a decision or anything, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I think many things. Specifically, I'm not remembering. So I would refrain from answering that.
Who did you call first thing when anything went sideways during your presidency? Was it an EO friend? Was it a spouse? Was it a board member?
So, when I was president, we were we still are a close-knit chapter, but we were only 60 folks. And out of those 60 folks, there were 10 on the board, right? I think at that time, Sukrit was also there, Ronak was also there. So I think, and I used to call a lot of people, I think, but those two were my go-to guys, because Ronak always has chapter feedback, so if he sees this, he knows what I mean. So,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. And a funny or an awkward moment during your presidency that you'll never forget?
Nothing. It's just, I think, just the revealing of the logo when we did it during the President's Ball, and people saw Zara Hatke, and I myself found it a little, awkward. That what a theme. But I think I'll never forget that moment when the logo was unveiled and people were like, "What is Zara Hatke?"
Raising eyebrows.
Raising eyebrows. Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun, no?
Yeah. And finally, finish this sentence. Being an EO president is actually just dash.
Being an EO president is actually just being a servant leader. It's all about servant leadership. So that's how you have to look at being a president.
We'll just sum it up with one more part. Something that in that specific year, if you would share an incident or a decision or an initiative that sort of, that you're very proud of and you look back very fondly at.
I think I've already talked about this, but it was the overnight retreat because it was never done. We had kids too at the retreat, and I remember they all came. We all had a great time. We did the evening a bit, and in the morning there were kids around, and we were having breakfast together. So I felt that this was a very different and a more fun initiative we took at that time. Yeah. Unfortunately, COVID hit after my year, right in March. But yeah.
That was one period. But lucky by that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. With this, we've come to the end of this podcast. We hope you had fun, Anirudh.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, and thank you for your year of service. And we've heard wonderful things about that show.
I hope so.
Well, and one of the reasons I personally also joined was, I think you were heading it at that point. So thank you again
Oh,
for your
Thank you
wonderful
so
service.
much.